Well, hello there. As you know, I'm all your favourite Australian YouTuber. I talk about politics in the Australian environment. Now that I've, completely ostracized every Australian viewer, and they hate me now, we can actually get into it. You see, Canada just had their election about a week back, and I made a video in the lead up to the election talking about how I believe the results will be a bit of a litmus test for whether or not we have successfully demonstrated why the right-wing populist push the Western world has been taking electorally over the last year is not a good idea to continue. Canada was destined to have a massive conservative victory up until Trump took office and started not only hurting America, but hurting Canada. And it wasn't just a nationalistic thing, it was an, oh crap, conservatives behave this way and we don't want to repeat America's mistake. You know, it's not just that Trump's hurting Canada, it's that Trump's also hurting America in the process. He's incompetent. And right-wing populism is no different in Canada than it is in America at the end of the day. They want to do the same thing there. And so my hope was a big, liberal victory in Canada would mean, ideally, a show that we're not going to see the same mistake repeated or the same trend continued in other countries. And that maybe that means America will not repeat this mistake again either. When you know, even though Trump's trying to walk it back, when you know Trump runs for a third term. So, now we've got Australia's election. Happened yesterday. I was a little bit worried that, maybe Canada was a fluke. Maybe that's all it's going to be. Maybe, yes, the Liberals won, but it was a relatively tight margin, so it's possible that in Australia, a country that I feel like is more conservative than Canada, might be wrong, but it just seems that way to me, they could continue the trend there. But I'm happy to report that was not the case at all. The Labour Party, the Progressive Party in Australia, won quite handedly. Or handily, I think is the term. It looks like the rest of the world truly has realized how big of a mistake America made, and that voting for conservatives who will promise you the world and deliver shit is not a mistake that needs to be made twice. I don't know how long this message is going to stick, but I'm glad it's sticking at all, frankly. So let's learn about these election results, shall we? I'm excited to see what the deal is. I did not really follow this election as it was happening. So I'm excited to see what the future of Australia on a policy level is looking like. What policies were ran on by each party, particularly the Labour Party, not the Labour Party, the Labour Party that actually won. Like, what's their policy plan? How is Australia going to change? Is it going to be a relatively more the same type administration? Time to find out.
This video was brought to you by Brit.
So quiet.
On Saturday, Australia went to the polls to elect their new government. And only a couple of months ago, it looked like Peter Dutton's coalition were on track to oust Anthony Albanese's incumbent Labour government.
Well, will you look at that? The same shit as Canada, huh? Even with us, apparently Australia is very conservative. Even with Australia being more conservative, same trend as with Canada. Polyev and the Conservative Party in Canada were really on track to win. And then Trump took office, and it was just months and months and months of the Liberal Party, well, not Liberal Party, it was the Canadian Liberal Party, taking the lead and then coming out with the victory and winning over the parliament. Here, it's like, bro, the Labour Party was just as fucked and just complete switch up once Trump took office over the course of the last few months, since January. You can see it all, like, at the end of January, I would say, is probably where it switched. Same trend. Same exact trend as Canada. Mind you, these are all countries that have, like, the whole Western world, due to the fact that COVID and the massive recession it caused was global, mostly affecting the Western world insofar as, like, elections that we follow. And so, because liberals and progressives tended to be the incumbent when this happened, a bunch of people, at least a critical mass of people in the center, moved more conservative, hoping that they could avoid that type of thing being repeated, believing the promises of the opposition party. And so this is people realizing they don't want to fall for the same lies that America did.
But after a sudden swing in the polls, Labour actually ended up winning a larger majority than they did in 2022, paving the way for another 3 years of Albanese's cautious progressivism. So in this video, we're going to take a look at Australia's electoral system, what happened on Saturday, and what this means for Australia going forwards.
TLDR.
We're getting ever closer to 1 million subscribers, and 68% of you aren't even subscribed yet. So lend us a hand and subscribe today. So before we get into the results,
I think I am
let's start by
subscribed.
explaining Australia's electoral system, because it's pretty quirky. Australia has a bicameral...
Oh boy. Oh, good. We get to learn about another quirky electoral system. Also, that's crazy. Is that an emu? Is that a fucking emu? No. You're telling me an emu and a fucking kangaroo? Fucking roo and an emu? It's an emu and a kangaroo holding up the crest of Australia. That's the seal of the country. Really? What an amazing country, dude. What an amazing country. A literal emu and a fucking kangaroo. That is so fucking peak, dude. The true leaders of Australia.
Parliament with 2 chambers.
The two parties, the kangaroos and the emus.
The Senate and the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives is really the House of Government, and it's where most bills originate. The Senate is more of a House of...
How fucking hard is it to pronounce emu? Well, I know how to pronounce emu. I'm just saying it how Australians do. They say emu.
Review that's supposed to review and approve legislation from the House of Representatives. Anyway, the Senate has 76 members, with 12 senators from each state, and 2 more from each of the internal territories, who are elected using the Single Transferable Vote, or STV, election system, with the states and territories functioning as multi-member constituencies. This means that, to get elected, candidates need a set number of votes, known as the quota, and voters can rank multiple candidates in order of preference. First preference votes are then...
Got Australian memes.
Voters can rank...
Crocodile Dundee, The Greatest Showman, Bluey the Dog, Someone from Neighbours. That's good. That's pretty good Australian shit. Anyway, as I was saying though, is this ranked choice? Is what he's describing here essentially ranked choice voting? Does Australia have that? Canada doesn't, nor do we here in America. Yeah, it's ranked choice. Oh, that's not really quirky. That's just based. Why is he describing a based voting system as quirky? Ranked choice is what you want. That's what can make third and fourth parties more viable, because people can throw their support primarily behind the party that most aligns with their views. But if that party doesn't make the cut, they can throw their vote behind a second or third most favored candidate. And, they still get to support, the harm reduction options. But they can also still vote for, simultaneously, their most ideal candidate who has a lesser chance of winning. I like that system. I've been pro ranked choice for as long as I've known of its existence as a concept.
Multiple candidates in order of preference. First preference votes are then counted up, and any candidate who reaches the quota is elected. Their second preference votes are then redistributed, and then either another candidate reaches the quota, and their next preference votes are redistributed, or if no candidate reaches the quota, the least popular candidate is removed, and their second preference votes are redistributed. And this process then repeats until the required number of candidates have reached the quota. However, only 40 senators...
It's way more simple than it looks. In essence, it is literally... select the order in which you like these candidates to which you most dislike them, and you just select the order you would prefer them to which order of preference you have for them, and your vote will basically get behind whoever is the most viable preferred candidate highest up on your list. Why can't we have this here in Canada? I wish we had it here in America. We wouldn't just be stuck with the Democrats and the Republicans. People could actually, we could have a viable progressive third party. Then again, it could also make a literal Nazi party viable in America. Just saying.
Senators are elected at each election, 6 from each state and all 4 from the territories. The House of Representatives, on the other hand, has 151 members, who are elected via single-member constituencies, with each constituency drawn so as to represent an equal number of voters. These MPs are elected using the alternative vote electoral system. This is a bit like first past the post, but if no candidate gets 50% of the votes, then the least popular candidate is eliminated and their second preference votes are redistributed. This process is repeated until one candidate gets above 50% of the vote. Now, AV systems protect against the vote splitting that you risk in a first past the post system, but in practice, the results are actually pretty similar. And historically, about 90% of seats have been won by the candidate who also won the most first preference votes. This difference in the electoral system means that the two chambers have very different compositions. The House of Representatives is usually dominated by MPs from the big parties, but because of the multi-member constituencies, the Senate has more independents and minor party representation. This divergence is exacerbated by the fact that voting is compulsory in Australia. If you don't vote without a good reason, you have to pay a...
Dude, this guy is rocking primo voting gear. This is how I'm pulling up to vote next time I go. Next time I've got to vote, this is how I'm pulling up. 100%. I've never seen a more immaculate outfit for it. Holy crap. Holy crap. This guy is dripped out. He is just shameless, frankly. How I pull up, I'm going to oil myself up. More oil than a Diddy party. Just oil myself up so all my muscles will be fucking bulging. My muscles. I'm going to go in and I'm going to be like, 1 vote for Joe Biden, please. Be like, sir, that's not how voting works. But they'll be too scared to say it because I'll be so fucking huge. Anyway, that aside though, I do think America should have compulsory voting, in all seriousness. I think America should legally require you to vote, and you should get fined or some kind of penalty if you don't. But it should also be very heavily available. There can't be any weird, stupid roadblocks in the way of voting, while it's also mandated that you vote. At that point, you're basically putting people between a rock and a hard place unfairly. So there's a lot of things that would have to be changed before we could even touch policy like this. We would have to have, several back-to-back Dem administrations at least. But I would like to see compulsory voting in the U.S. That would be a nice policy.
A $20 fine, which can help funkier candidates pick up votes from people who would have otherwise just stayed home. And as such, it's very rare for any party to have a majority in both the House and the Senate. Anyway, for most of modern history, Australia's federal politics has been dominated by 2 big parties. On the left, you've got Labour, and on the right, you've got the Liberal National Coalition, generally just known...
Correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, guys. Didn't this same trend happen last time Trump won? I feel like it did, though I don't remember all that much of foreign politics when Trump was in office last. I feel like the Republican and conservative politicians all throughout the landscape were complaining about Germany being too left-wing, and the UK being too left-wing, and Canada being too left-wing, and Australia being too left-wing, and New Zealand being too left-wing. Did they have, big progressive victories after Trump's last win? It's not just Trump is the reason? Well, I'm just curious. Is there a trend there that, every time Trump has won, all the rest of the Western world has pretty quickly elected a pretty strong democratic, or I guess progressive establishment? I see, Sebi, right.
As the coalition. Elections are held every 3 years, and at the last one, back in 2022, the coalition, who had been in power since 2013, lost their majority to Labour, winning just 58 seats to Labour's 77. This was the first Labour majority since 2007, and the worst result for the coalition since 1946. The other big story in the election was the success of the Greens, who won 4 seats, and the so-called Teal Independents, a term used to describe a set of socially liberal localist candidates who won 7 seats, all in urban areas formerly dominated by the coalition. This was in part because
Damn. You know, when you have a ranked choice system, you end up having third and fourth parties that can actually, you know, compete and hold seats. Just very unusual to see as an American. To have to remember more than 2 parties, like, really, you know?
Australians were tiring of the 2 main parties, whose collective primary vote share has fallen from about 85% in the 2000s to less than 70% today. This erosion of the traditional 2-party system has also occurred in other countries with similar political systems, like the UK, where the 2 main parties are collectively polling at about 40%, or Canada, where the 2 main parties increasingly struggle to achieve outright majorities. Anyway, until quite recently, it looked like
nobody is all that popular still. We are yet in this era of politics where conservatives, besides the most radical, are kind of like disillusioned with politics as a whole, right? But they'll still vote. Liberals and leftists are scared of like fascist conservative takeover across the world, right? So that motivates them to vote. But on neither side is there really like that much enthusiasm about engaging in politics to make things better. And so neither party, especially when you don't have a Trump involved, like in Australia, neither party seems that popular. Like each party wins its seats by just barely, you know? Like their majority victories have been just barely too. I don't know. I'm used to seeing much more like obvious and like very staggering differences in the amount of seats between one party or the other in America. Not necessarily landslides, but I don't know, just not as close.
Coalition, led by former police officer Peter Dutton, were on track to oust Labour. Unfortunately for Dutton, in the past few weeks the polls have turned against him, and on Saturday Labour actually ended up winning by more than they won in 2022. At the time of writing, with about 70% of the votes counted, Labour are projected to win 35% of primary votes and 85 seats in the House of Representatives, while the coalition are on track to win just 31.5% of primary votes and 36 seats.
Not a lot.
This is obviously a pretty good result for Albanese and Labour, but really they only won this...
Doesn't the Labour Party also have allies that occupy the in-between seats too, that they can negotiate with to like vote with them on certain things, and maybe even some conservative party, I guess Liberal Party, like politicians that might be willing to kind of cross the aisle and vote in certain ways. So like the Labour Party might have more power than even that display of the amount of seats it has. In essence, we'll have to see.
This many seats because the coalition did terribly, and Labour's
So yeah, the Greens might end up voting. The seats held by the Greens might as well be seats also held by Labour when it comes to most progressive legislature. Is that what you're saying, Stina Abel? Because that's what I was getting at.
Primary vote share only increased slightly on 2022. In fact, it's almost exactly the same percentage as Labour leader Bill Shorten got in 2016, which he actually lost to Malcolm Turnbull's coalition. The point we're trying to make here is that this was an absolutely terrible result for the coalition, who saw their primary vote share fall by 4 points and suffered the worst result for any major party since 1949. So what went wrong for the coalition? Well, as we see it, there are 3 main reasons. First, polls suggest that Australian voters liked Dutton less the more they saw of him, and Albanese had a big lead when it came to who Australians would prefer as their Prime Minister. Second,
turns out the more people saw of this Conservative candidate, they liked him less. They're just not charismatic people. Trump is like the one Conservative that's truly charismatic, and it's just because he is horseshoed so far into uncharismatic that he's in the charismatic zone, you know? It's like when a dude is so kind of like fugly that women start to kind of find him attractive because he's interesting, you know? Right? Like, it's one of those situations. Trump is so anti-charismatic, he's horseshoed around into being charismatic. At least in the minds of many Americans. Maybe not to you, maybe not to me, but none of these people tend to be very likable, especially not as people, from what I've kind of gleaned.
And while Dutton's focus on economic issues, especially inflation, the cost of living, and the housing crisis, originally paid electoral dividends, a series of exaggerations and U-turns have undermined the coalition's claim to economic competence. For instance, Dutton claimed on multiple occasions that grocery prices had risen by 30% and electricity bills had risen by $1,300 under Labour. But neither of these claims are even remotely true, and inflation has actually markedly fallen in recent months. Similarly, Dutton criticised a recent tax cut introduced by Albanese as fiscally irresponsible, but simultaneously claimed that taxes would ultimately be lower under his government. Thirdly, Dutton has been tarnished by his association with Trump. Now, Dutton originally pitched himself as Australia's Trump whisperer, and was even nicknamed the Timu Trump by the Australian left for his conspicuously Trumpian policies.
Canadian and Australian progressives watching my stream, can I just say, you're welcome. What can I say except you're welcome? For the fact that you got progressive victories. All because, like the organization, Progressive Victory. Hey, you all got progressive victories in your elections, all because your electing population realized what a massive mistake we made. You know, our country burning to the ground has taught the rest of the world a valuable lesson. So what can I say except you're welcome? Zan acting like he did something. I did this all myself. Thank you. Give me the claps. Come on, chat. Clap in chat. Drop those clap emojis for me. Make me feel good about myself.
Including implausibly large cuts to the civil service and a referendum on the deportation of criminals with dual citizenship. However, this has actually hurt Dutton electorally because, well, Trump is pretty unpopular in Australia at the moment, for obvious reasons. Nonetheless, Albanese still has a lot to do. While his poll numbers improved during the campaign, this election was probably more about the coalition's failures than Labour's successes. And he'll need to make more progress on fixing the economy, and especially Australia's disastrous housing crisis, if he wants to win
complacency.
Again. At TLDR News, we're always trying to help you learn more about the world around you. And luckily for us, our sponsor this week, Brilliant, shares that same commitment.
Very good video, but you know what I want to see? I want to see Sky News Australia's reaction. I want to see them mauled. Sky News Australia election live results reaction. Did they have live reporting when they found out that the Labour Party was going to win?
There's a problem in the macro as well when you look at this overall situation. Let's go to some of the nationwide and statewide figures here as we tell you why this contest is effectively over. 5.5% swing against the coalition so far. So overall, this can pick up. We will see this pick up in on-the-day posters. But the problem is the swing's clearly going against them and building bigger. So again, can that correct itself somewhat? Yes, but look at the difference in those two party preferred. So even if they're correcting to 52-48, that's clearly not something the coalition can win from. And we're looking at, as well, at our pendulum at the start of the night. This was the question. How far could it swing? Could it swing all the way over to blue or be a toss-up? At the moment, it's going that way. So will we see a correction from these numbers? Almost certainly when we're talking about that pre-poll and postal. But it's not going to be enough to get it back all the way over there. The other issue as well for the coalition...
Oh, man. I don't think... Hold on, let me lock in. Oh, man. No, I gotta do my best Australian. Oh man, I don't think we're gonna be able to pull through the victory on this here Liberal win. You know, I don't think we're gonna be able to pull it off. I think the Labour Party is gonna win. I can't do Australian accents all that well sometimes. Sorry, it's got to be the right time, right place, right day. I'm bad at it. Man, I hope we get to see a little bit of cope. Does anyone know if there's like a clip of them coping over the results? Because they seem to just be like a little nervous here, you know?
Coalition is when we're stepping this out, it's not just about what's happening, it's where it's happening as well. So we saw at the start of the night, Victoria was always going to be a key part of their polling. Let's look at that first of all. These are the seats, of course, that Peter Dutton needed to win. So these are the margins: Chisholm, Aston, Bruce, McEwen. Aston was seen as almost a certainty. As we go right now, we're actually seeing Bruce, McEwen, Chisholm and Aston is even Labor leading. Now, these sorts of margins, in particular, McEwen, Aston, Goldstein, maybe they can be brought back, but they're behind right now and they're going to be tough. New South Wales is another story altogether. Look at the targets.
Yeah,
in fact, they're the margins
left
right now. If we look at where the targets were at the start of the night, a swing.
It would make sense that the capital, New South Wales is like the capital province, if that's the right term, state, province for us of Australia. It makes sense they'd be pretty progressive, right? It's very developed. It's very, like, my understanding is like Queensland. Yeah, actually, what was the page for Queensland? Because that's like where all the bogans are. Don't go out there to Queensland. Them bogans will fucking eat you. They vote Liberal. Fucking crazy blokes out there. Fucking Queenslanders. Queenslander! Sorry, I had to give you guys... Hold on. For the Aussies who will be watching live and after this. Wait, did we not getting... Okay, we just don't get to see Queensland's results. Nice. Cool, I didn't want to see them anyway. Yeah. No, I didn't even want to see them anyway. Yeah, no. No, totally. I didn't even want to see the results for Queensland. Yeah. I didn't even want to. Anyway, let me try to do my best Queenslander for the Australians who'll be watching both now and after. Queenslander. There we go. I feel like I did a good one there. This is old news, but the Labour government won an 86-seat majority. Yes, it did. We saw the results already. We've been covering stuff. Oof, not good. No, that was a bad one. Queenslander. There you go. That's a good one. That was a solid one, I think. Damn, the Australians, they're giving me the weird champs. They're telling me my impression is bad. Listen, don't you start sicking your drop bears on me.
Right now, if we look at where the targets were at the start of the night, a swing to hold, Gilmore, look at these tiny margins, -01, 2.6, 2.2. As we go now and we see where these margins are, most of these are well beyond what we're going to see when we see that correction. So no joy in New South Wales, and Queensland, of course, is going the other way. We're not seeing the Liberal Party pick these up, and they're going to lose others at the moment as well.
Well, LB, it would seem the bogans have finally gotten their heads on straight. Nice. I'm sorry. I'm just ostracizing every Australian who's going to watch this segment. I wonder if they'll make it past that god-awful intro with the Australian accent I did. They're not going to like that one. There's going to be a lot of comments about that one.
So, therefore, at this stage, we're not sure what flavour it might be. There's positivity within Labor. It could be a majority. But Anthony Albanese will, again, be Prime Minister of Australia.
Labor wins. Sky News declares it. Tom Connell has called it. And this is a major moment for Labor and for Anthony Albanese.
Sad. Sad. Trying to keep a straight face. Looks confused. Upset. Trying to keep her shit together. Stern. Just kind of not even paying attention. Doesn't give a fuck. Dude, Sky News is like the OAN/Fox News of Australia. These people really did not want this. Keep that in mind.
Albanese, the first Prime Minister since 2004 to serve a full term and be re-elected. The first Labor Prime Minister since Bob Hawke to serve a full term and be re-elected. This is a huge moment for him, for your party.
There's a problem in the macro.
Oh, they actually brought on guests that weren't conservative. Well, weren't right wing. You know what I mean? I don't know what your labels are over in Australia with your politics. I don't want to get my terminology wrong or anything. I'm just a dumb old American. I can't understand your fancy not quite European politician system. Anyway, I really am happy to see that it's not just a fluke with Australia, that or not Australia, with Canada, that Australia and hopefully more will follow the same trend of quickly bouncing back away from that conservative shift, you know? Didn't Germany recently have a pretty good result in an election recently? I might be wrong, but Zan, we absolutely demolished them. We demolished them, mate. Yeah, I'm very happy to hear about that because, good lord, we need to see at least the rest of the world learn from the mistakes of America. But if the rest of the world is learning from this mistake, hopefully Americans aren't literally so stupid that they are incapable of having the same realization. Assuming Americans are not as dumb as we all like to joke they are, we should see a very different result in the next election. I'm starting to feel a lot more positive. Assuming we don't have a rigged election next time we have one, it should be a pretty hopeful result, I think. Apparently New Zealand is having an election either this year or next year. I hope the trend continues. Hopefully it happens this year and we get to see another progressive W. I'm a Queenslander. Murdoch owns something like 90% of the media in my state. It's insane. I hate our news. I hope you guys like that when you announce you're Australian, I do like a little accent for you so I can, you know, just indicate to the viewers that you know, you're Australian. They gotta know. Sorry. No, but seriously, that reminds me a lot of living in Florida where, like, big conservative billionaires own so much of the state and they just line the roads and highways with, like, anti-abortion signs. It's crazy stuff. Why am I surrounded by Queenslanders here? Man, so many Australians in chat today. You know what? Hold on. If you watch this video all the way to the end, when this goes out on YouTube, then please consider leaving a comment that tells me you got this far. It also really helps in the algorithm when you comment on my stuff. So consider leaving, you know what? I know exactly what you need to comment down below. Comment down below, Queenslander! If you watched all the way to the end. Just comment your best Queenslander. And I will be very happy to know that you guys, you know, you gave me your support all the way to the end of the video. And of course, don't forget to leave a like. Every single thumbs up goes a long way to boost my channel in the algorithm, along with the comments. It really does mean the world. And of course, subscribe and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications if you want YouTube to actually tell you when I go live or upload new videos in the future. And of course, if you want to see more from me on other platforms, I got social medias linked down below you can join and follow. And especially, I recommend you join my fan Discord. It's the main hub of my community and my fan base. And I host gaming events, call-in streams, watch parties, movie nights, all sorts of cool stuff there. So really, you don't want to miss anything? That's the place to join. Link down below. And of course, don't forget to, you know, if you want to support me directly, financially, if you can afford it and you feel like it, consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some custom Xander Hall merch through the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me, though, thank you so much for watching, and as always, I hope to see you in the next video. Have a good one.